Awaaz.com.
This is the morning brief from the Economic Times, produced in collaboration with Awaaz.com.
While we are in this dire situation with rising number of COVID cases each day and acute supply of oxygen, and patients are really struggling to get oxygen, hospitals are putting out SOS tweets saying that oxygen supply is going to run out.
An effort is underway. The centre is saying they have put up, in fact, a nodal agency to ensure that the production of oxygen is not just ramped up, but is also equitably distributed to all the states.
Nabeel Khan, my colleague, had to hunt for an oxygen cylinder in Delhi for his brother, a COVID patient. This is what he faced.
Getting even a bed is next to impossible. It's been 3 days I have not got the bed. I begged to many hospitals, top officials, and everybody reached out, begged them, can you give us one bed only? The most difficult task that I had to deal was finding an oxygen cylinder, that to a filled oxygen. I don't know how many calls I made. I had 3 phones by my side. I kept on calling all the numbers that were coming, my wife, me, dialing at the same time. In the meantime, there were a lot of fraud numbers also came in,
Nabeel is amongst the thousands in India who are desperately hunting for oxygen stored in cylinders, concentrators to keep their nearest ones breathing. Oxygen is now India's most prized commodity. Today, I talked to an oxygen manufacturer, a steel company that is producing oxygen for medical purposes, a startup that is flying in oxygen concentrators, and a doctor on how the country is trying to respond to this crisis. I'm Rajeev Gupta, and you're listening to The Morning Brief. Rajeev Gupta, Managing Director of Vinayak Air Products, an industrial gas manufacturer, has been producing medical oxygen amidst this shortage. He told me how the supply chain in this pandemic remains a major hurdle. Rajeev, how bad is this oxygen shortage in India, and which areas have been most impacted?
See, we are facing oxygen shortage in certain parts of the country, and that is primarily due to exponential growth of COVID cases in India. If I tell you, per day consumption of medical oxygen was around 900 metric ton during pre-COVID time, that is before March 2020. And present consumption is around 5,500 metric ton per day, while we have an overall capacity of around 7,800 metric ton per day. As far as areas which have been most impacted, I would say northern and western states, including Madhya Pradesh, are on the edge, while eastern states are oxygen surplus.
What about the southern part of the country?
Southern parts, they have the spare capacity with them. In fact, they are helping out states like Maharashtra and Goa. So they are pretty much okay.
The shocking part is COVID is not new to us. It's been a year and we had 1 year to fix this challenge. Where did we fall short?
See, you're right, but we need to understand where were we 1 year back and what we have done so far. Government of India had set up a high-powered committee to monitor oxygen situation in the month of March 2020 itself. And you'll be surprised to know lots of important decisions were made in a matter of few days, which normally takes months in our current bureaucracy setup. Giving licenses to industrial oxygen manufacturer to produce medical oxygen was issued in a single day. And all the industrial gas manufacturers were asked to produce medical oxygen, and they were doing this since April 2020. Conversion of industrial oxygen cylinders into medical oxygen cylinders and many more. But the second wave, I think, has proven that we had to do more. Going ahead, I think we need to install more oxygen plants at the site of big hospitals to make them self-reliant.
But if the demand goes up, which it is likely to, how do we sustain?
See, at present, we don't have the oxygen shortage in India, but we need to look into the logistics and optimum utilization of oxygen gas. So I would say the solution could be the smart and efficient logistics to move stocks from eastern states to northern and western states, installation of on-site oxygen generation plants, and checking wastage and overuse of oxygen at hospitals could be a big thing, because as per our studies, around 10 to 15% oxygen wastage can be checked if we smartly do the oxygen audits at hospitals.
What are the distribution challenges that you are facing right now? Your company and the industry of oxygen makers, is it the availability of cylinders, then cryogenic vessels? Where is it that we are facing a scarcity right now as far as distribution is concerned?
Well, I think we have sufficient cylinders and cryogenic vessels with the industry. It is only that we have to use them smartly. And as I said, we need to have smart and efficient logistics. Like nowadays, we are using oxygen rail. Normally, a cryogenic tanker, when we are moving it from eastern part to say Punjab, so it would take 4 to 5 days. But now railways are helping us, and they are moving it in 2 days. So we need to have these smart and efficient logistics. And then one more thing is to make available more number of cylinders. We also need to discourage panic hoarding of cylinders at home, because nowadays most of the people, whenever they find their COVID report positive, they are running around and trying to arrange a cylinder or two.
CEOs of large hospitals, can one hold them also equally responsible? Because they had seen this wave coming in. Shouldn't they have been better prepared? Because I understand when the smaller hospitals, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the availability of resources. But large hospitals, why are they so unprepared?
See, oxygen manufacturing can be happen in two ways. One is PSA technology, which you might have been aware of, that Government of India has floated tenders and trying to arrange from their side to hospitals. And second method is cryogenic separation, the way liquid oxygen is generated and distributed at present. This PSA technology is actually a substitute. The product purity in case of a PSA oxygen plant is only up to 93%.
Okay.
While the purity in case of cryogenic separation plant is more than 99%. And furthermore, the cylinders and liquids can be filled in a cryogenic plant. So oxygen plant, the hospitals can only, on their on-site plants could be PSA plants, but some smaller cryogenic plants are also available. Going ahead, bigger hospitals at least should think about installing cryogenic separation plants at their premises. They can use whatever quantities produced there, and whatever is left, they can choose to distribute to other hospitals.
Okay, so for the listeners, PSA here means pressure swing adsorption. It's a kind of technology which is used to separate some gas species from a mixture of gases under pressure. Rajeev, also for our listeners, there's so much of discussion between industrial oxygen and medical oxygen. What is the difference?
Well, there is no difference at all. The only thing is, for medical oxygen, we need to perform a few more tests, which are not required in case of industrial oxygen. For example, we perform a test for carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and humidity level. That's all.
Staring at a colossal tragedy, the Indian government asked steelmakers to ramp up their production of medical oxygen. Steelmakers are one of the largest consumers of oxygen. V.R. Sharma, Managing Director, Jindal Steel and Power, explained to me how medical oxygen is produced and what it takes for steel companies to safely transport this life-saving commodity to hospitals. Good morning, Mr. Sharma, and thank you for being with us on this podcast.
Good morning.
So, wanted to understand is steelmakers like you have started upping their production of liquid oxygen, which is different from industrial oxygen, to cater to the scarcity in India. For our listeners, can you explain the process?
Sometimes we always feel that medical means you need very high purity level in each and everything, but it is the other way around. When we produce steel, we have the capability and we produce oxygen with a 99.5% purity level. But for medical grade, we do not need 99.5% purity level. We need only 93% purity level, plus 3%, minus 3%. That means from 90 to 96%, the purity level of oxygen is called medical grade oxygen. So when we say that it is medical grade oxygen, to me, it is very simple job and we can produce as much as possible. There is no problem.
So, what percentage of oxygen in a steel plant can be produced for medical purposes?
You see, we are giving now only one grade we are making, that is 99.5% plus purity level, which is a very high purity level. And the only difference in two is that industrial oxygen, we do not check. It is not certified by medical association. But whereas the oxygen being supplied to hospitals, it is being checked by an independent agency, and so that it is safe for the human being. So there is no problem. The process is like that, and the plant is capable to produce that kind of grade.
Okay, so Mr. Sharma, one question everybody wants to know is supply chain and the logistics of it. How is this oxygen reaching hospitals across states? There are discussions on green corridors, special tankers. How are you all sending the oxygen to the hospital and therefore reaches the patient on time?
Yeah, so there are three methods. Number one, directly fed into tanker, and tanker they move out by road to different destinations. And number two is filling in the cylinders, and then cylinders going straight to the destinations. And number three, we load into tankers, and the tankers are carried by Indian Railway, so that there is no barricades, no stoppages, no traffic jam in between. So all three modes are being exercised. One of the mode was also explored to lift oxygen by air. But unfortunately, what is happening, each and every city or each and every origin point where the oxygen is being generated is not connected with the airports. And for a heavy haul aircraft of 25-30 ton of capacity, which it can, so they take a longer runway also, about 2 kilometers plus. So it is little difficult to transport oxygen by air. But all other three methods are convenient. Here we have suggested and requested to all of the transporters through Government of India to please ask your tanker operators to have 3 drivers per tanker. They should not have one driver, because if it is one driver, then the driver will park somewhere for lunch, dinner, breakfast, and then he or she will have to sleep also. So that means there will be delay.
Even startups like logistics firms Delhivery decided to bring in oxygen concentrators from all across and help out in times of distress. Sandeep Barasia, Chief Business Officer at Delhivery, chalks out the company's plans for flying in concentrators and cryogenic cylinders. Sandeep, your company was one of the first which started procuring oxygen concentrators. Could you tell us how you went about doing it?
So, we're not really procuring oxygen concentrators. We are doing 3 different initiatives. The first and foremost is we're providing logistical support from various parts of the world, including China, where people who already have loads of essential goods which are required today, including oxygen concentrators, we are helping them move those back to India in an express manner. We are also providing local support in the origin country, and of course local support here in India. The largest item, or the most frequently shipped item, all of that is oxygen concentrators. So a lot of that is coming in from China. We expect the first 900 odd of them to arrive tomorrow. And we're doing this using charters. We're also using our partner. We're working closely with FedEx and SpiceJet to actually get onto regular cargo and their regular freight services from across the world.
And finally, this precious oxygen reaches a hospital. But where did we drop the ball? What did we learn? Dr. Bornali Datta with Medanta Hospital says she has never seen a crisis like this, and every stakeholder needs to take responsibility. Doctor, how difficult has it been for you over the last few weeks?
Yeah. So last few weeks have been absolutely horrendous. I don't have any other word for it. This time, because of the numerous variants, everything is different. The younger people, the 30s, 40s, they are the worst affected. They are really sick. Older people, okay, the ones who've been vaccinated, maybe the intensity of the infection is a bit lesser. The hospitals, as you know, they are just flooded with patients. Everybody that everybody knows is down with COVID. So it's a highly infectious variety, and because we have dropped our guard completely, it sort of just, ravaged the whole society.
Doctor, where did we drop the ball?
We should have been far more vigilant. Of course, it's a balance ultimately. The economy has to open up. That has suffered, and the government was in a hurry. But the election campaign, large gatherings, I mean, those are disastrous kind of thing.
Doctor, this crisis has exposed and highlighted the black market in India when it comes to oxygen and medicines. We've all had family members, we've had friends who have gone berserk hunting for oxygen cylinders, oxygen concentrators. What can be done to stop this?
You're absolutely right. And I think for this, it's important. So what is happening is that well people are, buying concentrators, buying cylinders and just stocking it at home. I mean, the people who can pay any price that's needed. The black market always emerges when there's a shortage of anything, right? So we're seeing it, black market of remdesivir, we're seeing it tocilizumab, we're seeing it in oxygen. I mean, some oxygen. So a different source of, oxygen rather than the piped oxygen that we supply in hospitals. So you're right. But, it is, it's not surprising that people are panicking. But then holding and, so that will just encourage black market and it doesn't solve any problem, right? So, yeah.
And the black marketing and hoarding of oxygen cylinders that has become rampant in the country made it tougher for many, like my colleague Nabeel.
What would cost you in a normal day, 400-500, that was for 2,000, 3,000. I agreed to pay that. Even then they said, no, after 2 days, after 3 days, you will get the cylinders.
A big thank you to all our guests today who have helped us understand how oxygen, such a precious commodity, is produced and finally transported to the hospitals in the midst of this pandemic. Today, India's oxygen crisis is a reminder that if we do not learn from our mistakes, then the air we take for granted may continue to cost us. I'm Devina Sengupta and you're listening to The Morning Brief. This episode was edited and coordinated by Nehal Chaliawala and Shashwat Mohanty. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode. Do send in your feedback to themorningbrief@timesgroup.com and share the episode on your social media networks. The Morning Brief airs every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Thank you for listening and have a nice day ahead.
Avaz.com